Nishant, are we ready? Nishant is our co-founder behind the scenes.
Yes, sir, we're live.
All right. Namaste, Manika ma'am, and welcome to the learning experience conversations that we have every Friday with teachers, educators, and education reformers like you. And we have our co-founder, Itu Chopra, who will be having the conversation with you. She herself has been an educator and a teacher before, and is now very much a part of the Rex Karmovir Global Fellowship Mission. And it's very special to have you with us today because our sons go to the same school where you're the director now, have been a principal earlier. And of course, Manju Bharatram, who's the founder of the Sri Ram schools, was one of our first award recipients in the education category. I think she was the first person in the education category to get the Karmavir Puraskar.
What an inspiration. What an inspiration.
Absolutely,
she has been my inspiration.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jerry, for having me. And Hachis, congratulations. Your son's just become the head boy of the Sri Ram School.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
As of yesterday. So
yes,
Hachis,
thank you so much. So it's all thanks to everybody at Sri Ram School and to you and Mark Parkinson, who had made the admission and everything possible. So thank you so much. So over to you, Itu, and I'll join you later in the last 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you. Pleasure having you with us.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry. Namaste once again, Manika ji. So happy to have you with us. Absolute honor. And on Fridays, we call our conversation learning experience. And that's because we bring in people from academia and school educators and leaders and reformers like you to bring in more learning from your years of being with education.
Thank you so much, Itu. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely brilliant to have you here. So without much ado, I'm going to straight away dive into conversation because we have lots to hear from you, lots to learn from you, and lots to take away for everyone who's listening in. I'm going to begin with, I would like you to share with me and take me to your childhood times, anecdotes, times of growing up, and what are those, what was it like in school and things like that? And what is that one thing that remained with you when you came on the other side of the classroom? And take us through all of that, because therein lies a lot of, learning and what shapes us in our times when we grew up.
Okay, interesting question. No one's ever asked me that. I don't think in the last 30 years I've been asked that question about where I grew up and how I grew up, except at my first interview at the Sri Ram School by Mrs. Manju Bharatram, who asked me this question. So I come from an army background. My parents are now retired, Brigadier Shubh Chadha. They live in a small army town called Mao. I have one younger brother. It was a very simple living. So I started my schooling in Loreto, Delhi, and then went to Jammu Presentation Convent for 2 years. Thereafter, my father was posted to the northeast to Gangtok and Siliguri. So my mother raised my brother Gunit and myself all by herself in Lucknow. So I joined, again, Loreto Convent, and I finished my schooling from Loreto. I think very good memories. We lived in something which were known, and I mean, you're an army wife, so you would recognize what separated family quarters mean. So we lived in separated family quarters next to the Muhammad Bagh Club. And I used to cycle to school with my friends. And today, all of us, all my fellow friends from Loreto Convent, we're all, thanks to technology, we're all connected, and we keep going back to our school days, which are really interesting. So I think some of the memories that have stayed with me were, of course, I loved my school. I loved my teachers. I think for those days, it was fantastic. And our competitors were La Martiniere girls, So I remember being contemporaries with, I think, Nafiza Ali, and all of them were 2 batches senior to me. And of course, today, many of us are heading schools, girls from Loreto Convent. So it's interesting. Yeah. Having said so, I think the focus on sports when I grew up was a lot. I played baseball for my school team. We don't have baseball anymore. We don't, and people wonder, what is baseball? But that was my favorite sport back then. I also played table tennis for my school. And I remember my assemblies, the piano, the going to the chapel every morning before you left. But we grew up in a very secular school,
Right.
despite the fact that we had nuns for principals, but it was a very secular school, open-minded, lots of opportunities for us, lovely school uniform. Those are the memories that I have of my school days. I think the one thing that impacted me hugely was there was a teacher who was extremely strict with me and not so kind about my handwriting. It still isn't good. And I would get it on my knuckles, every time I wouldn't write well. And, corporal punishment those days was no big deal, right? 30 years, 40 years back,
Yes.
Corporal, not even 30, 40 years, 45 years back was no big deal. You got it with the scale on your knuckles. And so that left a very bitter taste. And I always thought that, in my life, I think kindness has to be that seed that I must sow wherever I go. So, yeah. Having said so, out of school, we used to swim, we used to play at the club. I used to visit libraries. It was a simple life, same tiffin every day. There were no frills, no fancies. There were no debates on how much is too much. There was no instant gratification. So parenting was very simple, very strict. I grew up in a strict atmosphere, but yet with lots of opportunities.
True. Yeah, as you were speaking, you took us back in time. And I was also remembering my school times. And, I always talk about two things that, army kids or, forces kids, as we would say, are their adaptability quotient is so high. Malleability is so high. Ductability, if I can use these chemistry words in here, is so high. And, there is this simple living, slow movement that probably needs to come back, or probably COVID has given that slow movement of life
Absolutely.
needs to come back. And you also spoke of that, things were slow and not that easy to get,
Yeah.
but so beautifully was soaked into our psyche and minds.
So DNA was all about, okay, be happy, be content with what you have, and it didn't stop any ambition for us, or but we continued to love what we did. We were
Right.
happy. We were happy.
And of course, as an army kid or staying in towns, you would remember the highlight of the day was going out to play in the evening in a spot where the whole cantonment children would come and gone home in
Yeah.
camaraderie.
Yeah, that's what I just mentioned. We would either go to the parade ground and experience the horse riding there, or we would go to the neighborhood club where all of us were members, and we would swim, we would play badminton, we would watch once a week movies over popcorn, and that was all that the entertainment was. And watching open air movies in army theaters was something else that really excited us. And then, of course, because my father was posted out, we would travel in trains all the way to Siliguri, Gantok, and he did many years there. And hats off to my mom, who sort of raised both my brother and myself. And so every summer holiday we would disappear for 2 months with those the sleeping usko kya bolte the? We used to call it
Hold on.
yeah, hold on. Thank you for that.
It's
Yeah.
an army term.
And it was wonderful. It was
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
I think I took my first flight when I was about 18 or 19 years old. I haven't been in an aircraft before that.
It was not the norm, and it was
It was not the norm.
fine. And
Yeah.
the joys of train journey and the home food and
Yeah.
slow living, as I was saying.
Absolutely, too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So Manika ji, tell me that tell us, how did you embark on the journey of being a teacher, a guru, a education leader, and being this catalyst for the future generation to mold them in a way. And you talked about compassion, that was one learning that you had. And I think the best learning lessons are when we are in the downtime, when we're feeling bad about something, when we are, if you remember them and transform yourself or reinvent that whole thing into a more beautiful thing, that's the real learning in life. So how did you find teaching as your purpose and calling, or are you an accidental teacher?
No, I'm not an accidental teacher. Thanks for that question. It was by choice, not by chance at all.
Great.
I used to live in Defense Colony in New Delhi, and I heard of, at that point in time, the South Delhi Polytechnic was very popular.
It was.
I'm now talking about 1979-80. And there was a professor called Mrs. Kamal Marwa. She was the wife of Mr. Ved Marwa. And I went to check on admissions there. And it was a 2-year degree course that I did on Montessori education. When I went to meet her, I was enamored by her. Just her whole persona, empathy, kindness, knowledgeable. She was a very inspirational teacher as I saw her. She said, come and sit in on some of my classes and see what I do. And it was a packed, not an auditorium, it was a packed hall with lots of people out there, all girls, and sadly. And I sat in through 1 or 2 lectures of hers on early child education, on history of education. There was laughter. There was, the whole ambience was so beautiful. So I came back and told my parents, I said, I think I've got my calling. I think I want to join the South Delhi Polytechnic. So most girls would do a 1-year course, and she advised me, and she says, Manika, I see that you're quite passionate about this. I would advise that you do a 2-year degree course, which was recognized by the Delhi government then. So I said, okay, I'm game. So in my 2nd year, I got a job offer at the Army Public School. And so then Mrs. Marwa and, we developed a wonderful rapport.
Right.
And she said, you're not going to waste that offer. I will accommodate all classes for you. So you will go teach in the day and come back to me in the afternoon, get off that bus, walk into the South Delhi Polytechnic at South Extension, and come and do your lessons in the afternoon, and I would go home at 5 o'clock. Right. So year 2 for me was like in-service, training. So I was teaching the elementary school children. I think it was class 1 at the Army Public School, and going back and learning and plowing all of that back into my lessons the next day. I used to take a bus from Defense Colony and go to, my workplace and then get off here. So I think it was my calling. I think I've always believed in children. I've always believed, every child has the potential, and we just need to realize that potential. So I think I was all of 20, 21 years old, but I was very clear of what I wanted to do.
That's so beautiful. At Rex Karam, we run all our initiative, and one of the initiatives that we are launching very, very soon, we talk of, making passion your profession and just give to your passion. And it's so beautiful to know your passion early, but in the times that we're sitting now, it's never too late to know your passion, and you can kind of divert and meander through your passion as long as you keep keep it ignited, keep the spark burning, and keep it lighted and ignited, as they say.
Absolutely.
One very beautiful thing that you speak here is that we always have catalysts and interventions that inspire us, like Mrs. Marwa that you talk of. There's always that one teacher or 2 teachers who leave an indelible mark on our mind, on our life, and to be able to remember the name and talk about it, it is so beautiful. And I'm sure there are hordes and hordes of students of yours who say the same for you now, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Yes.
It's tough to say it yourself, but I do remember my children, all those people who graduated, they're all of 37, 38-year-old now, my first batch from the Shriram school.
Right.
So, I remember them very fondly, and I remember all their parents and their names and their bus number and where they lived, so because you were so invested in what you did. So I think those things come naturally to you. Yeah. So, yeah. I do remember, and I remember them very fondly.
Yeah, and I say that, teachers are also gifted with elephant's memory. They somehow remember the names and so many things, as you say. And that touches the children so much, because they, oh, do you remember me? Do you remember that? And when you say, I really remember, and that's a joy of their lives, isn't it? Did you miss me?
Sorry, your voice dropped.
Okay. So, we've been
Yeah, I
joking
missed that because your voice dropped.
I said, teachers have elephant's memory somehow.
Yeah, they do.
And
Yes,
that
they do.
it makes it so beautiful for children when you tell them, yes, I remember things.
Yes, I remember. We meet them at their weddings. We go and attend their weddings. They never forget to invite us. And then the children are coming back to school now. So it's fabulous. It's circle of life. It's been beautiful. The children who I taught who were all of 4 years old when I joined the school, today their children are studying in the Sri Ram school. So
Yes.
it's absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely. And as
Once a teacher, always a teacher.
Absolutely. And what we were talking that, this investment that we make as a teacher gives us dividends all our lives till we are going to be alive. So that's the very beautiful part of it. Manika ji, tell me something, 1989 to 2020 journey with the Sri Ram school. Share snippets, highlights, and milestone of this journey, because the school has a very beautiful name to reckon with, as far as holistic learning and holistic teaching, holistic education is concerned, and also for churning out very humane students, all-round students. So, that's a very, very important aspect of pedagogy and andragogy as well. So tell us about that.
Okay, so I feel I'm very privileged, having chance on the Sri Ram school. I don't take any credit for what the school stands for and believes in, because I think that the family, Sri Arun Bharatramji, Mrs. Manju Bharatram, and now their daughters-in-law, Mrs. Vasavi Bharatram and Mrs. Radhika Bharatram, I mean, they've been in education forever, from Lala Sri Ram's times, right? So the Lady Sri Ram College and all of those. So, and that has been the culture of the family. I was just lucky, I would say, right time, right place. I make no bones about it. Right time, right place. I lived close by to the Basant Vihar school, and I heard that this wonderful school is coming up and adjacent to the Muradabadi forest, which is the forest next to where our first school started in 1988. And I went and applied for a job. I joined the school as a teacher, as an elementary teacher, because there was only 2 classes. From the first step that I took into that school, it was infectious. It was contagious, the spirit there. The way I was treated, the way I was welcomed by the first principal, Mr. Ramchandani, Vivek Ramchandani. They didn't have a form. They had sort of, and there were no computers. There was no technology. And I walked in and I said, I want to meet the principal. And he said, I'm the principal. And so I said, oh, interesting. He was in his kurta pajama. And so I said, I'd like to apply for a teacher's. So he said, but I'm so sorry, but I don't have a form to give you, but I have a file copy. Do you mind filling that in and bringing it back? And it was the vision of our late chairperson, Mrs. Manju Bharatram. She knew how to pick the right people, and that's something that I've learned from her. So it was a very interesting form. I took it home, I filled it up, and he said, you just bung it into my letterbox. Those were the letterbox days. He lived in Vasant Vihar, and he said, just throw it in there and I'll pick it up. And I was called for an interview. And the first thing that I saw an ad in India Today. I was in a train coming back from Mau, and I saw the India Today, and I saw an advertisement there. And it said, if you're passionate and you love to learn and you love children, come apply. That's exactly what the ad said, and I knew that I've got my calling. So then my fingers crossed. I went for this very difficult interview at Bahadur Shah Zafar Market. SRF office used to be there. It was so interesting. They asked me nothing on education. I had read up so much, and John Dewey and all, my notes from my B.Ed and M.Ed days. And I read up everything on history of education and thinkers and philosophers. And I walk into this office at SRF, and Mrs. Bharatram was there with 3 other people on the board. And they asked me only three questions. And I often share the story with my teachers. They ask me only 3 questions. First was that you live in Anandiketan in Delhi and you must be coming. That time there was no Gurugram. We all used to go towards Connaught Place. And you live in Anandiketan and you must be driving up the Rajpath very often. So can you name us 7 flowering trees on that road? So I said, I don't know. The second question was in Hindi, and they said, methi ko kaat ke dhote hain ki dho ke kaatte hain to retain the vitamins of methi? I said, I don't know.
Okay.
The third question was really interesting, Itu. They said, what's the wingspan of an aircraft? For the life of me, I'm sure you also don't know. Who knows the wingspan of an aircraft? Unless you've been through an aeronautical engineering degree or something like that. Oh, okay, you
The first two
are having some connection. Oh, wow. So I said, I don't know. So I came out in 20 minutes and I told my husband, I said, not happening. This is not happening. I didn't know anything. Okay. And they said, we'll get back to you in 2 weeks. And 2 days later, I get a call. We had no mobiles, there was a landline number. And the principal called me and he says, you're on, want to come? Join us. So I said, Vivek, but what happened? I couldn't answer any of those questions. He said, no, we were not looking at your knowledge. We were looking at your patience, your resilience, your ability to say, I don't know.
Yes.
So we are looking for the right kind of people. We're not looking. Knowledge you will acquire. But those are the traits that you need to see in educators.
True.
So it was a huge lesson for me. So that's my first brush with TSRS, the Sri Ram School. And I joined in within 6 months of its opening. So, and it's been a wonderful journey. We built it brick by brick. We started with the Vasant Vihar campus. Since you asked me a pointed question, I'll share the journey.
Please do.
It was small, it was quaint, it had lovely green lawns, the principal's dog. We had 5 huts, and we had this advertisement, as I said, and people would wonder that what is this school about? They call, are our children going to be guinea pigs here? It's experiential. What do they believe in? What do they stand for? And all we stood for, even way back then, was child centricity. I know both Mrs. Vasavi Bharatram and Mrs. Radhika Bharatram quote this often to teachers to say, ask yourself, is it good for the child?
True.
And let that drive your decision. This is exactly what Mrs. Manju Bharatram said, and this is the DNA of the school now. Every time we ask ourselves, is it good for the child? And if the answer is no, then you know what you have to do. So having said so, we were, 11 teachers, a bunch of 46 students with just a sandpit and lots of crayons and lots of handmade worksheets. And that's about it. In 3 years, we had arrived. Anyone and everyone in Delhi was talking about the Sri Ram School. So what made us different? Like I spoke about, it was the quality of recruitment. It was the teachers. Right. See, schools are not just head-led. Schools are about the faculty, the teachers, the vision. And that has stayed, like I said. We loved what we did. We experimented. We did nature walks. We did field trips with our children. We're an inclusive school. So from the time that I joined as a teacher way back in 1989, we embraced children who were differently abled, who had those special needs. That is something else that our chairperson used to talk about, that you have to, school, it's a heterogeneous group of people. You have to embrace children who are differently abled. So we, from the very first year that we opened, I won't name the children now, but where we didn't come with any training. That time there was no special educator. We were all special educators. Finally, I'm very happy that people started recognizing the need for training. There were no counselors. We were the counselors as class teachers. So we were everything rolled into one. But gradually, as things evolved, as things grew, special education became something that people would do. We had the Spastic Society of India, and then we started, hiring specialists from there. So it's been wonderful. Then a couple of years later, we started the Mall Street campus. And then once again, it goes from strength to strength. But what we retained was, Ito, that we were very particular about our student-teacher ratio. That has always been 10:1.
Right.
And that shall continue to be the same. Because the number of teachers we hire, we just divide that across the number of students, and that's how we get the ratio. So, I mean, that is something we would never compromise on. And that has stayed with us. And yeah, and that's about it. I think it's a very happy school. If I can just describe it in 2 words, it's a happy space. Staff are happy, children are happy. I hope parents are happy. I'm sure they are. I do get a lot of feedback from parents because it's a happy space to be in. I love what I do.
Yeah, I can vouch for happy parents and happy teachers because I have friends whose children are going there, and I have teachers as friends who are teaching in your school. So,
oh, really? Oh, that's
yes.
interesting. You should have told me that before.
I can vouch for
It's
that.
a very happy school. You know, we are given a lot of freedom. There are no hierarchies. There's no, I mean, everyone does what they think their heart desires, and you
True.
get the best results. So we haven't compromised anywhere. We talk of the environment. We talk of passionately. We talk of Paryavaran. You know, we believe in it. So many years back, when there was no, I mean, nobody spoke about it, but Sriram spoke about that right way back then. The water harvesting that was inaugurated by our late Mrs. Sheila Dikshit, who was the CM that time in Delhi, in the year 2000
Yes.
at the Vasant Vihar campus. So the
Right.
children were taught all of this from the early stage, from Pravesh Vatika, from the nursery class.
You know, you're making me want to come back and teach for some.
Please do.
I'm all there.
It's wonderful. It is wonderful. Yeah.
So I am all there. You know, you spoke about the 3 questions, and you know what comes out of
Yeah.
that
So
3
that's been
questions?
a wonderful journey.
Yeah, what comes out is the spirit of learning to learn, as we call it at Rex, and also not knowing, curiosity, and not knowing is a learning in itself because no one knows everything.
Yeah.
And I
No
think
one knows.
the teacher with the right heart is a teacher who is the real good teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I, as a teacher and as a parent, I think that same rule applies there, is that you just have to go back into being a child and being a student. The minute
Exactly.
you do that, you become a better.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
I so agree. I so agree. Yeah.
that's one thing that I've always remembered, how I felt when I was a child, or how I felt when I was on this, sitting on the other side of the classroom. And you know, you talk about the fact that the school talks about it's so important to have character rather than competence, because as you said, you can learn, you can grow, you should have that mindset to do it. And I think that all of that permeates into the school's mindset, the teacher's mindset, and becomes the ethos and philosophy of everything that you do around the school. And that's the beauty.
I think it's based on the foundation of trust.
True.
You have to trust that your child is in good hands. The management has to trust that the teachers know what they're doing, you know. So if it's based on a foundation of trust, then nothing is impossible. I mean, I feel that the teachers give their 100% because they know that we believe in them, we trust them, we know that whatever they do, and that's why they're there. They've been hired for that. We have fabulous HR policies for staff, you know.
Right.
I mean, and anyone. The other day I was in a meeting with a group of teachers, and they came up with one. I mean, we do medical insurance, you know, for them. And one of the teachers came up with an idea about during COVID times, how can you do some things differently, right? It was a teacher who brought that up, and we took it back and we started working around that. So, you know, you have to have your ear to the ground. You have to be a listener. You have to be an empathetic leader, you know, to be able to create a school which has a DNA of empathy, compassion, and kindness.
Absolutely. You talk our language of Rex Karam. These are the things, even in the school program that we are rolling out, that this is what is required. Vulnerability, you know, triggers so many beautiful powers within us, which I think I'll leave for Jerry to kind of touch upon later. you know, I'm wanting to know I asked this question to all our school leaders. I'm wanting to know your COVID story because, these have been tough times, and school teachers and school leaders and children are going through such a difficult and a different phase that history will remember it, they will remember it, and they're part of the history that is being created right now. So, what has been your COVID story? So, as to say, because I'm asking it as a story because there has also been great learning in these tough, hard times for children, for teachers, for everyone.
Interesting question. See, schools must put equity front and center. In April, I was reading the McKinsey report, which was released in April.
Right.
191 countries and 1.6 billion children were impacted and they were out of school.
Yeah.
Rewind to April. I'm talking about the April report. You know? When I read it, I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And nobody knew. We painted 3 or 4 scenarios as the Sri Ram school. What if school were to open we shut down in March. What if school were to open in April? What if school opened in July? What if it opens in December? And we're almost into December. Now, yet again, we are painting 3 scenarios, because we don't know, So I think all of this, the way COVID came, and so for all of us, we had to reboot and we had to quickly make sure that, the children don't suffer.
True.
And I think as a progressive school, that's something that we believed in. We already had the digital footprint thanks to the pollution. Again, now we are, saddled with the pollution in Delhi, in the capital. But we already had a very sound digital footprint. So every teacher had a laptop. Every teacher was trained in ICT. There was an expectation that was spelled out, not now, since the last 8 to 9 years. So for us, suddenly with COVID, we had to prioritize what are the things that we really need to do. So, and these needed absolutely tailored strategies. So, starting from health and safety, that was the first. We had to ensure that people were safe, our children were safe, our teachers were safe. Maximize student learning. We had to make sure that nothing stops. I mean, when this happened in the month of March, you having been a teacher, March, April are the months for all schools where they have to do that turnaround.
Absolutely.
Right? The open days, the new classes and the new movements, new children joining school, new session, new orientations for parents, all of that. But I have to credit my principals, my team, my vice principals, everyone, rose to that challenge so beautifully. Within a week, not even a week, I think within 4 days, we had everything planned out. I had communicated to the parents, all 4,500 families, to say that, okay, here's a crisis and we shall rise and just have faith. And having said that, new timetables were drawn up, orientations were conducted online, report cards and PTMs were done online, one-on-one with every family, explaining that, it is going to be tough. We had new children and new staff in school who we'd never met. But we engaged, we embraced, we inducted them into the Sri Ram, belief system, the expectations of a Shri educator. We call them Shri Shikshaks. And today, when I look back, I feel we did a jolly good job. Because, in fact, as we speak, just this morning, I've sent out a survey to the parents of classes 9, 10, 11, 12, because there are talks about schools opening. So I thought, let me just test the waters. I mean, I'm very sure what the response is going to be. I won't talk about it because I don't want to influence anyone. But I'm very sure about the response that I'm going to get, because I do believe that the teachers are doing such a fabulous job that I don't think anyone wants to see a change, right? And when we're also aware that when the new normal returns, we know that we will have to do things differently. There's been such a huge learning for us during this pandemic. Nothing has stopped. We've had student council elections. We've gone international with exchange programs. We've got international with our debates that we run annually, with our Shri Utsav, the performing arts program that we invite. We used to only invite schools from all over India. This time we invited schools globally. So we just changed the timings to 10 p.m. to accommodate students from the US or from Europe, So it's been a learning. I think we have to start looking at things positively rather than constantly looking at the glass as half empty. We need to see it as half full. And because if we don't, then our children are going to feel demotivated and very depleted, So I think we have to inspire that confidence and that vote of confidence in our children to say, it's all right. Having said that, I think some of the good things that have emerged from this is that we've been able to do academic interventions in very small groups, which was never possible. We never thought about it earlier. We would ask the parents to hold their children back in school. The teachers would stay back, spend another hour with the child, and then they would, find their way home. We would drop the child home, or the parents would come and pick up the child, So sometimes crises can be a spur to creative problem solving. And that's what's happened with the pandemic for everyone globally, not just the Sri Ram School, but since I come from the Sri Ram School, I'll only talk about what we did. We've been able to, our Parent-Teacher Association rose to this, and they provided gadgets for, as you know, that we do have the children from the economically weaker sections. They comprise 25% of our student strength in a class. So we were able to provide them with dongles and gadgets, thanks to the parent community. Now you tell me, it is such an invested parent community. Could a school have done it? Over 250 children, in school, who suddenly were thrown off, who did not, we didn't have, in the primary school, we didn't have bring your own device kind of program, right? They wouldn't know how to work on a laptop or a tablet. So suddenly, our teams came together, my ICT team, trainers came together. They invited the parents, they trained the parents, they taught them, they provided them with, each child got a gadget. Sitting far away in remote areas, now they all have a phone or a gadget, and they're able to transact all the lessons so seamlessly. So I think these stories, 20 years later, I could write a book, because I really think that we have done some fabulous work, and my teachers have been exemplary. And the school management, the family is absolutely invested in every child. In fact, when we have meetings, I'd like to share this. I think the first question that even I am asked is, how is every child who's coming from the economically weaker section doing? We track their progress. We want to see the learning curve going up. So that's my huge responsibility, that they should not be left behind, because the privileged will have access. But what about those who are not privileged? What about those who are differently abled? Right. But again, this has been a fabulous experience for my special educators, because what they tell me is that now it's anytime, anywhere, and they reach out to their children on a Saturday, on a Sunday. The parents are sitting by their side, and they're having their interaction with their children, and it could be better. So
yeah, no, you spoke about inclusivity earlier as well, and I think that's such a huge learning in itself, because when they see it at school, and as you said that parent teacher community is also very strong, so even it permeates even there, it percolates everywhere, and so exactly. I think in a way we are making the world a better place. We have students who are sensitive, compassionate, more humane, and who are looking at haves and not have.
And I think the bourgeois and the proletariat, in our times we used to say the bourgeois and the proletariat, the haves and the have-nots. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And also the fact that the playing field has become enormous. There is no end to the playing field, as you said that you invited students from all over the world. So it's also time to kind of relearn and reinvent and give it back in the best way forward, because we as a community, or we as Indians somewhere, have let down a lot of people in the COVID as well, like the migrant labor. That's a huge debate, but we've let them down. So, we need more compassionate, kind, empathetic, emotionally intelligent young people in this country, and of course adults as well.
So, our senior students are doing exactly that. They have come up with such interesting narratives around who can they support. Way back again, I rewind to April when this pandemic hit us. We had a request for opening out our kitchens because we provide lunch to all our children and to everybody. It's in school. The didis, the bhaiyas, the support staff, all of us eat lunch with the children. So we opened our kitchens. The Sri Ram School opened its kitchens so that the meals could be prepared by various NGOs. And that was a huge, lesson in sensitizing of what we stood for as a school. It wasn't easy for us. We were on the peak of COVID at that point in time. So, just to get all protocols in place, to get to our security agency, our school administration rose to the occasion so beautifully, just to make sure that whilst we're opening our kitchens and our children are watching, our parents were watching, and I know that many parents went as volunteers to be able to distribute the food that was made. Tons and tons of food was made in those kitchens. Simple food since you spoke about the migrant laborers, feed the migrant laborers,
No, I'm so glad to come out because it's a huge learning.
Yeah. I mean, there are schools and there are schools. See, hospitals nobody could touch, right? But if schools converted into, spaces that were sensitive and that could have, that could provide for facilities like we did, then can you imagine how many people got to benefit from that? Some huge learnings, and I think it's been a fantastic 8 months of learning.
Yeah. And we all saw that, the civil society rose up to the pandemic. The government did what it did and did not do what it had to do. So the civil society rose up, and those are the learnings, and those are the stories that need to be told, to be shared. It is very, very relevant of you to tell because, it sends such a strong message as well.
It hasn't been easy for anyone,
It hasn't been.
I think when the community came together, Itu, there was strength in that, So, for example, suddenly, every teacher, all 600, we have 600 teachers, all of them using their gadgets and their laptops, suddenly they realized that those gadgets and laptops needed to be serviced, they needed to be rebooted, So we did physical pickup of every laptop every weekend. I don't think the parents even know this, but because it was important for us not to let any lesson suffer. And at the same time, we didn't want our teachers stepping out because that was peak COVID again, right? Stepping out. I mean, it was lockdown between Gurugram and Delhi. We couldn't cross the borders, right? So, so we made sure that Friday afternoon on a roster, all these gadgets and machines were picked up. Our IT team was working, burning the midnight oil. They spent nights in school so that by Sunday afternoon, they could return those gadgets. They did about 20 to 30 gadgets over 2 months every weekend. Where do you get this kind of passion from? It's only because TSRS cares, the Sri Ram School cares about every employee. The family, the Bharatram family cares. I mean, we are very invested as an organization, and I think that's why we can make magic happen.
Yeah, that's very, very beautiful, and I completely, this resonates with me and as what we do at Rex Karavir. And I personally also feel that when you do things with passion and you make this soulful connection, and you bring that into your work, the devotion, the shiddat, and the love, only then magic, as you say. And then you need, there is no rocket science to that.
There's no
rocket science. As simple as that.
Dil se karo, dil se. You do anything, dil se, magic will happen,
Junoon.
Yeah, junoon. And, education is a junoon.
It is. Agree with you.
You can't treat it like a job. I mean, education is a junoon because you have to see how you as a teacher, how I as a teacher make a difference to every child in my care.
Yeah.
So agar junoon nahi hai, to fir this is the wrong profession for anyone. I mean, that's how I see it.
I agree with you totally because I'm still invested with my students who, as you say, are grown-ups, and they still reach out to me as a life coach, as a wellness coach, or in my other avatars. So I've never lost touch, and it's because that junoon is there and something you did right at that point of time that they come back to you even today. So Manika ji,
Yeah.
I'd like to touch upon another fact and another very, very important aspect that also came out, and the discourse around it was more vibrant and more vocal, was the mental health pandemic, which was already looming large all around. Uh, but the discourse or the narrative around it started to be showcased and started to come forefront in these times. And I think the youth or the world is dealing with this mental health pandemic. I'd like you to kind of give me your input on that as a education leader, and things that you feel are imperative to be considered and put into the role.
Okay. I'm really glad you asked this question. Because I've been meeting students, over exit interviews, the passing out batch, and many children have spoken of their peers and others, children in other schools, their friends in other schools, and many of them spoke about, the mental health. We, again, for us, we invest in school counselors, social emotional counselors. They have a huge role to play. They don't teach any subject, we don't give them a psychology to teach over and above their role as a counselor. They are pure counselors and they have to connect with children. So when I spoke about IT enablement, when I spoke about how teachers rose to the challenge, we also had parallel meetings with all our counselors across our campuses, right? And we drew up a plan for all of them to take weekly connect times with their children. Those children who they were already handling, anyways, they were connecting with them, right? But over and above that, I think, mini workshops were conducted at regular intervals by the counselors for their children. And it was spiral all the way.
Right.
Starting from junior school, going all the way to senior. I remember when the first day that we opened our school, I mean, I shouldn't say open, but when we had the summer holiday, we were still on a holiday, but it was a break for our teachers. And the first day when we came back on the 29th of June, after that 1 month break for staff and students, we had invited mental health experts for our teachers, all 600 teachers, okay? Itu, I can't tell you the kind of feedback that I had from the staff community after those sessions.
I'm sure.
They said, Manika ma'am, that was the best, non-instructional working day that you all could have planned for us, because you were thinking of us. There was a discussion around, as you said, mental health, well-being, emotional well-being, stories that were real, holding of our teachers. Each one could relate with something that the panelists spoke about. And like I said, that evening, the phone was buzzing with, messages of just gratitude to say, you didn't give us gyan on, how to teach, what to teach, how to deal with the children, nothing. It was all about a well-being day for our teachers, because if the teachers are happy and they feel that, okay, we feel secure in our space, they will raise happy children. Again, after a month or so, we had yet another session around mental health, this time for our children. And they were all invited for a webinar. So I think that is something that we, we do believe that is important. We need to hold our children, and we're constantly having, meetings on Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever with families, with children. In fact, we declared one day as a, no school day in the middle of nowhere, just as a surprise for every campus. And the parents loved it. The children loved it, because they said, why, how come a sudden holiday out of nowhere? We said, because sometimes surprises are nice. We want you to detox. We don't want you to come onto gadgets, and tomorrow's a holiday. So sitting at home and, embracing a holiday, it's a strange world. We are at home and yet we speak of it as a holiday, but the holiday was from gadget and from online, just being online. Yeah. So, small things like that make children happy is something that we've been very conscious of as a school.
Yeah, that's so important as well. And, thank you for sharing that. I'm wanting to ask, that, that your school is preparing, and it's been in the mill and the drill of opening the school portals and, doing the groundwork on a war footing. And because there is a bigger fear looming with the parents, with the students, with everyone. So, we are fighting all these bigger fears. And what are your views on should we or should we not, to be or not to be?
Okay.
Development.
It's a very good question again. So I think safety before everything else. Okay. We believe at the Sri Ram School that we have to take cognizance of the fact that those children who are in their last and final year of school, we need to take responsibility of every child there. That the learning has to happen, the revision has to happen, enough online assessments have to happen for them. The teachers should be on call. Every subject teacher, every head of department should be on call should they have any questions. I feel very responsible for the outgoing batch who's going to take the examination in the coming year. Okay.
Right.
For the rest, I think people should really treat it like a gap year. What will happen? What will happen? What will happen? You'll do 3 chapters less, 5 chapters less, right? But you need to remember that pandemic happens once in 100 years.
Yeah.
So I think as parents, who may be listening in, to say, take a deep breath and go slow. It's all right. We take charge of your child who has to compete for that university, as they leave the portals of the school. For all other batches, I think we just need to we need to pause and think, what is more important, safety or otherwise, right? We cannot guarantee safety. We have come up with the best protocols as a school, okay? Because we need to do that. We don't know how things are going to pan out. So it was time that we did that, right?
Right.
But every other day you hear about every other nation around the world is again going back to where it started,
The second wave.
That's what they say, because everyone's out there, So we can talk to our children, we can talk to our teachers, we can provide the best masks and everything. But finally, we don't know. They can't use buses for some time. They can't eat school lunch for some time. They can't sit more than 8 children in a classroom for some time. So I'm waiting and watching. I think as a responsible school, we need to wait and watch and do what is best for my children and staff.
Yeah. And you said a very nice thing, we need to pause. I know students are missing out on the school as it was, because school is not just about classroom and studies and books. The school was about meeting friends, the sports ground, the connecting with so many things.
No, I feel very sorry for the children. I really feel sorry. My heart bleeds for them, because they're just confined in this cocoon. And we need to build resilience in ourselves, patience, odus of patience in our homes. I think we just need to give them a variety of things that they can do, because they're already doing enough of online learning. So we need to do some family games and some family time with them. I feel very bad for the children. I really do.
Yeah. And also I think everyone needs to remember that nobody has asked me in the last 20 years, how many marks did I get in my 10th and 12th? What did I do with it? And I'm sure nobody's asked you. It really matters.
No,
it's
I
not
don't.
that.
And I tell my children I was an average student.
So was I.
It's all right. It's what you make of your life. If
Absolutely.
you have it in you, I always say it. I say it at graduation, because I do worry about children when they sit for the board exams. I always say, try your best, give it your best, leave the rest to the Almighty, to or to one's luck. Today I even say luck. Who gets 100%? Nobody gets a 99.9 or 100%. We got 60% in our times. That was first division. We used to have divisions, so we got a 60%.
Yeah.
So I think we can't be marks monsters. But I do feel sorry, because finally that's what also counts for college admission. So there's a bit of a dichotomy in my own head.
Yeah, very sadly, but it does. And at Rex Karamveer and our, the program, the school program that we're talking about, that it's not your degree or it's not your competence that matter. It's what you made. What are you made of inside? because
Exactly.
things can change. Life is full of challenges, and we need to have life skills rather than marks. So
Exactly.
that mindset needs to be shifting. On that note, I'm going to invite Jerry back into the conversation to take it forward with you. And welcome, Jerry.
Hi,
Yes,
Jerry.
namaste, ma'am, once again, and
Namaste once
thanks,
again.
Ritu,
Namaste,
and
Jerry.
very interesting insights. So I didn't know Nafisa was your schoolmate.
Well, she was my 2 year senior.
Right.
I was younger.
She was part of the founding advisory board for the
Oh, really?
International Confederation of NGOs and
As
the
was Dr.
RICS.
Shalini Advani. She was my 2 year senior in Loreto, Lucknow again. So, like I said, there are lots of
Good.
us from Loreto who are now
Okay.
heading schools. So, there's something right that my school
So
did.
Shalini Advani is also one of our Karmavir Award
Oh,
recipients
nice. She was
for
my
the
2 year senior.
Education Change Champions Award last year, which was given to all of you, of course.
Yes, I know.
And
I missed that
yeah,
event. I missed that
yes, yeah.
function. Yeah.
So yes, I spoke in Shalini ma'am's school around 2 years ago. That's where I first met her. Pathways, na, is the school?
Yes, Pathways.
Right.
Pathways Noida. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many
So
schools you speak
lots and lots
you
of
speak
Loreto
in,
girls
you
around.
forget who is where, right?
True.
So that is so I'm very happy to know that you're from Loreto. And I'm from a missionary or a Jesuit school myself. I'm a Xavierite, and like I always say, I'm a dyed in the wool Xavierite school, college management, and so on. Uh, and then you spoke about the secular values that we are taught in school and how we grow up with a secular outlook. And I was born in a Christian family. I don't practice any religion now. We brought up, raised our children without any religion at home. Jugnu is from the Sikh community, of course, and I was born in a Christian family. But I want to ask you, do you see that that secular fabric, is it still prevalent in India? Or because, when you see all those people who are very probably have not gone to school or got the right kind of education, talking about Hindutva or Islam, or rice bag converts, and including Christians who talk against Hinduism and Islam, and then you say, they've not got the right education. But then you meet people who've got the right education, they've gone to premier schools and they've gone to premier colleges, and they're rabid communal people. And I faced a few of those in my school and college groups, where just because I had posted something about Father Stan Swami, I was called a rice bag convert. And I didn't want to explain to them that I don't practice any religion. But these were people and I said, is this what Xavier's taught you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are your secular values? Because you guys are educated guys. Some of you went to IIM and some of you went abroad for studies. So suddenly, what is this thing you're saying that the Christians and the Muslims have it coming? What do you mean by that? And I was actually told this. So what are your views on this? Since you touched upon secularism, I want to know your views on this.
Very interesting. So of course, you wouldn't have heard me speak at the last graduation to the batch that's already graduated, but I spoke around the seed of secularism.
Right.
Last year, and over a cup of tea with all the parents post the event, post the graduation ceremony, many parents came up and said, we absolutely loved what you spoke about, because very few schools would touch upon secularism.
Right.
So, Jerry, to answer your question, so I grew up in Loreto. I used to visit the church every day, but nobody forced me. Nobody forced me to visit the chapel there, right? I used to go. I used to enter. I used to go 5 minutes before the bell would go. I would go, enter, come out, and go to my class. But
absolutely,
nobody forced
it was a choice. Yeah, it was a choice.
It was a choice because it gave me peace, right? So I think as educators, as teachers, every school's mission statement should carry a line or two or maybe more on gender, on secularism, and every school should actually make it a part of their DNA to have discussions and conversations with their students right from the early days.
Right.
Because we are responsible for raising those citizens of tomorrow.
Right. Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like like I was telling you too, that, the seed of, literally the seed of environment, or Paryavaran, is so deeply embedded in every Ramite, Sri Ramite, that you can't take it out of them, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know that. I mean, you know that, right? You're a parent. Similarly, I think secularism is a huge responsibility that lies with every school management, every school principal, every school teacher. Because if it doesn't become a part of your mission statement, then I think very often you're going to sort of miss it. You're not going to build things around it. You're not going to spiral that across the school. You're not going to have debates in senior classes around the
Absolutely.
subject. You will shy away from it.
Absolutely. And I completely endorse and agree with what you're saying, that every teacher should have not only a secular outlook, but look beyond any religion or any God,
Yeah.
or any caste. Secularism
Yeah.
doesn't stop with religion today. It extends to caste, it extends to region. So
Let me give you an interesting perspective.
Yes.
Good old days, like Itu spoke to me about school then, um, the admission process was very different. We did not have a lottery, we did not have all this. We advertised and we met parents and we granted admission, right? It was, and the children would play on a table on the side with puzzles, color, whatever they wanted to do. They would walk in with their parents. Unlike many schools, even that time, where the child was taken away, we believed the child, you cannot take a 3-year-old out of the parents' sight, right? So the parents would walk in, and the then school director and myself, I was a principal then, and we would interact, not interview, with the parents. Mrs. Manju Bharatram, God bless her, she used to tell me, because I think I was like, within 3 years of being a teacher, I took over the Vasant Vihar school as a principal. So I've had a very long innings with her, and I've learned everything from her. She used to say, she said, Manika, you have to remember, you have to get a very heterogeneous group of parents, from professors at JNU to an architect to a painter to a businessman. Don't think businessmen can't make it here. To a corporate whiz kid, whoever it is. But make sure that in your list, of those 112 children that you take at the entry point, at that time I'm talking about Vasant Vihar, make sure that you have a very heterogeneous, and make sure that you have people from every faith.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
for many years, I would have the Pakistan embassy only reaching out to the Sri Ram school, because they knew that if they applied for their employees, they would get a seat.
Very nice.
One has grown up like that in the school, right?
Absolutely.
What you imbibe in 32 years is what stays with you. So that's how I've grown up.
Absolutely. And I do hope and wish and request all the people, especially the educators and the parents who are watching this, to understand this, that if we don't bring up our children to be absolutely one with everyone today, then we are actually spoiling and destroying the future for them. And it's going to only get worse and much more dangerous, not just in India, but around the world. We can see what has happened in Nice and France yesterday.
Exactly.
Right? And it hurts you that educated people want to make some unsavory comments on Prophet Muhammad. I'm not a believer of religion, but I say that let's respect every religion. And if people want to follow that faith, who are you to kind of, instigate and provoke them by using an image of Muhammad when their religion forbids them and proscribes them from using any image? It's there in Sikhism too. You're not supposed to use a image of Guru Nanak anywhere, like even in a movie or something. So it's there in many religions. So let's respect that. You don't need to kind of provoke them, because when you provoke them, it has huge consequences and repercussions.
Yeah. And you have to celebrate. Our children experience every faith through the assemblies that we do.
Absolutely.
We celebrate through our textbooks, through our worksheets, through the assemblies, through trips, through lectures, through guest speakers. We celebrate every religion. So children just grow up with that, so they don't see any other. Yeah.
Yeah. And Xavier's was as Jesuit as it gets. And I remember in a class of 208 boys in my batch of 1986, there were 22 Christians. Rest were all, and when we finally met for our 25-year reunion, we were like, You're Maharashtrian. I didn't know that. We never cared.
So
You know what I mean?
yeah, interesting you say this. When the government came up with admitting the economically weaker sections in schools, I grew up in Loreto, where I didn't know a rich girl from a poor girl.
Right. Because
Okay, everyone wore this.
you were brought up with that standard of
Yeah,
oneness.
yeah. They all grew up with us. We were in the same. We never knew. This culture of what is it called now? Play dates was not there. Okay,
Absolutely.
we went to school, we came home, we went swimming, we went to play tennis or whatever was our hobby, and we slept early. Okay, there was no culture of. So we never went to anybody's homes to see how they live, where they live. So I grew up in a very normal 45, 50 girls classroom,
Absolutely.
and it's fine. So
And there were no rich return gifts. It was like
no. I've tried very hard to get rid of that.
Yes, I know, I know, because we are. I mean, we've even moved close to the school now. I don't know if you know that, but we moved to
I know
Hamilton last year because of
I know.
Zoravar's class 10. So we
Yeah.
said we'll save some commute time for him. So we know exactly what's happening in the school, but that's the reason I'm asking, and not because it's where our sons go, because it's just about learning. Because if one school can adopt it, then other schools can also adopt it. Because I always say what teachers and parents do is
So
what children will
interestingly,
emulate
yeah,
and model.
interestingly, you'll be able to relate because today Zoravar, as of yesterday, has become the head boy of the school. And last year, when we were doing the same interviews, I had a Muslim boy who was heading the school, and I was telling the principal, Sudha ma'am, I said, I really hope we can have boys and girls from different faiths who become leaders of the school, and it's by chance.
Absolutely.
These are they boys
Absolutely.
and girls have voted them into these positions, right?
Absolutely.
So she's, and for me it was a very big thing, because I felt that here we are setting an example, that you can come from any faith, any background. I have children who come from the economically weaker section who are on the student council at the other campus,
Absolutely.
at the Malsuri campus and at my Basant Vihar campus. So
Absolutely.
it's no holds barred.
And it's what you make of yourself today. I mean, I can say I'm going to touch 50 next I mean, in the coming month, and at the age of 50, some of my best buddies are from school, are Muslim boys, and a Sikh boy who now lives in Delhi. And of course, I have my friends who are from the Hindu faith and the Catholic faith, but you see beyond that religion, right? We never even thought that. So I'm trying to figure, in the past few years, where has this polarization come from? That you see it so stark and blatant on social media, where everyone from every faith, the Christians are no lesser. Nobody. I mean, these are people who like being rabid about religion. And it's sad, because even if somebody is provoking you, I think you need to know how to take a step back and say, hey, I don't want to indulge in this, because it's a futile conversation. But
So, Jerry,
anyway,
I think a huge responsibility on schools. College, it's too late.
I know.
Okay.
Absolutely, I
So
completely.
I
The formative years.
It has to be the schools and then parents. I think parents also have a huge role to play here.
Absolutely.
So between the partnership between the parent and the school, I think these are lessons that we need to impart to our young minds.
Absolutely. You have the Karmakari books, and our mascot teacher in the book, I mean, the person who inspired me, comes from a community called the Musahar community. And in 2002, when I started the Joy of Giving, most people in India didn't know about the Musahar community. The Musahars are so called because they eat mice. Musahar, literally translated in English, means mice eaters, because they survive by eating rats. And when I started the Joy of Giving, the whole idea of doing that movement was to say, let's make people aware that India is not shining by any means. When there's even one child dying of hunger, you cannot say India is shining, or that we're an economic superpower or a 5 trillion economy, right? Because there are millions dying every year, and the numbers have only grown from 2002 to 2020. They have not reduced. And I was telling the story about my chance meeting with Dashrath Manji, who's from the Musahar community, the man who moved a mountain. And I broke his story first on the internet, and that inspired me to start writing the Karmakari books and create the Karmavir Awards. And I was telling the story in 2015 or 16 in a Toastmasters event in Bangalore in a five-star hotel, and there were some 600, 700 people attending, and they had sold tickets by the lot, and you could see all of them wearing their corporate colors, their branded shirts, and right in the front row were these young executives from from one of the top Fortune 100 IT companies of the world. And one of the boys, 27 years old, when I spoke about Dashrath Manji having huge potential, like every human being in this room, stood up and started shouting at me, ma'am. And he started saying, "How dare you say Brahmins and Dalits have the same potential?" And I said, "Where did I even say Brahmins? I'm talking about Dashrath Manji's potential is there in all of us." But
My
then I
God.
but then I understood where he was coming from, and he was a Tam Bram boy. I am IIT educated, and I had to actually humor him. I said, "With all the taxpayers' subsidized education that you got, you're still so uneducated and illiterate." And I said, "You're right, actually. You'll never have the potential of Dashrath Manji with all your Brahminical attitude and your IIM education, because you can never move a mountain. So I think it's better if you leave the room, because you already vitiated the atmosphere." So this is a 27-year-old boy.
Wow.
And then I researched him, because the IT company called me 2 days later and said, "We have decided to fire him because he goes against our diversity and inclusion policy." And I said, "Please don't fire him. Get him a coach or a counselor." And they said, "Will you coach him?" I said, "Not me."
He won't listen to you.
I also have a bias against him now, right? So it wouldn't be right. It's an
I'm
ethical
glad you're
conflict.
honest about that. I'm glad you're honest about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
it's an
he
ethical
would need.
conflict. So they got him a coach, and 2 months later they fired him. Right now, if you see in 2017, 2017 or 18, I forget the year now, this HR head, who's the custodian of diversion and inclusion, was fired from Tech Mahindra. She was the HR head, mind you. And I had coached her earlier, because her CEO had told me that, she's got this major biases against people from the Islamic community, people from the LGBTQ community. And then in the report, we had assessed that, okay, she's changed, but she'd only changed the behaviors, not a mindset. So in 2018, she abused a boy from the LGBTQ community. And I was very happy that corporate India took action. Tech Mahindra fired her on the spot. When the So I think these people have to learn the hard way that, even people from the LGBT community are human beings.
Yeah, so we had them over. We have sessions like I was sharing with Itu. It was an open invitation. We had a session for teachers where we invited them just to share their experiences. And I had students walking in, so many children walking in just for that session, because they need to understand that you have to have open minds.
Absolutely.
Finally, what you embrace and what choices that you make is yours.
Absolutely.
But as a school, as a platform, we are there.
Absolutely.
The school promoters were there. I was there. Everyone was there, and we had the people from the community talking about their life and their experiences.
Absolutely. And I think that is very important to understand. I would say it's not just about understanding inclusion, it's about embracing inclusion and understanding that they are all human beings. And in our country, I find it to be a hypocrisy, because we call the people from the Hijra community. So in our Magnificent Seven oratory, we actually have Abina Ahir, who's from the Hijra community. And we have Harish Iyer, who's a boy from the LGBTQ community, who was raped by his maternal uncle from the age of 8 to the age of 15. And we actually go and do talks in annual gatherings of companies, trying to explain to them that, hey, we are all human beings, right?
Exactly.
And that's what we do. And with that, I'll conclude on the secular part, and thank you for your insights on that. And I hope all the parents and teachers learn that we need to practice this in our day-to-day practice, so that our children don't have these kind of biases and prejudices against any other religions or regions or castes or anything. The other thing which I want to talk to you about, I was very happy that you were speaking of optimism and being positive, even in these times of gloom and doom, as the world would like us to believe. And we share that optimism. But at the same time, like Itu spoke to you about the mental health pandemic. I've been calling it calling the mental health issue an epidemic for the past many years,
Yeah,
almost 7 8
I
years, I think.
I agree
Yeah.
with you.
And I've said always that cancer, HIV is not the big problem. Mental health, especially in our geography. And when I ask parents, because I do corporate coachings and training, when I ask them, do you know who are the biggest victims of mental health? After some thought, they say children. I say, yeah, right, because of all of you. Because the kind of
I
pressure which
agree.
is there on children is so huge. And one of the reasons Itu was telling you about the program that we've started, it's called Mojosh Inspirator. Mojosh Inspirator is my self-help book, which was to be published in May this year, but it's now delayed. And it's all about life, leadership, and learning to learn
Fabulous.
lessons. And we've called it the Mojosh Inspirator Life Leadership Learning to Learn Success Summit. Now, there are two reasons to have created this, where we are basically bringing in inspirators and missionary passepreneurs, as we are calling them, people who have followed their dream, pursued their passion, and made it into their life mission rather than just going for a high flying job in some corporate, because there are no jobs out there. So the epidemic is now going to be a little different. And if I'll just show you, I just pulled up a Google report. So if you see Google has like a whole lot of things happening about
Yeah,
mental health in current times. There was
yeah.
a BBC report 2 days back about how students, the Union of Students, has declared that we are having mental health problems because we don't know what to do. And the reason to form mills, one was because parents who have been putting that pressure on their students, on their children to get those high percentages and fancy degrees are today clueless what to do because there are no jobs out there. So the
Exactly.
students are not going to get jobs, the young graduates are not going to get jobs, and then parents are losing jobs. And people who are in the 40 and 50 plus bracket like me may never get jobs again. And at this age, to go independent is much more difficult than going independent at the age of 21. That's why we want to inspire students. And after we started doing this in the past few months, we realized that parents now want to attend the program.
Fabulous. I think it's the need of the hour.
Yes, so
I
that's what
really
we are doing.
think people need to be baptized, that they need to understand, they need to embrace, they need to accept more than anything else.
Absolutely.
They need to accept that there's a problem. Many times my children say that, acceptance is a big issue. That's why they
Absolutely.
don't want to talk. There's
Yes,
this wall.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
like we
I love
always say
that. I
that
love your
that the first principle of change management is acknowledging that something's not going to work for me. If you don't acknowledge that, then it's like saying Pakistan ko dekho, humse gaye guzre hain. So why are we
they,
benchmarking? Because champions don't benchmark others. The champions benchmark with themselves. They
they
compete.
lead the way. Yeah.
Now, the bigger concern over here, ma'am, and I'm sure you've noticed it, unfortunately, what has happened in the education and the ed tech space in the past few years is you've had a whole lot of people who've started ventures and then defrauded or created scams. And the current issue which is happening right now is, on one side, you have the Gary V's of the world who say schools and colleges are redundant without understanding how a school has a great mix and blend of people coming from different cultures, because you don't just learn from the academic books, you learn from people, right? You learn social skills, emotional skills. So schools and colleges can never be redundant. On the other side, you have people who are teaching you how to become millionaires overnight. Then you have White Hat Junior, which is actually teaching, and I'm going to read from here. And in every ad of theirs, the boy who's getting the job in different companies as a coder, his name is Wolf Gupta. So it shows you that there's some big problem over there where they don't have people who think working in their marketing and strategy division. And then Wolf Gupta from the age of 6 is going to be given offers by Google for 2 to 20 crores. And mind you, parents lined up for this program, right? Putting their 7-year-olds and 10-year-olds. A 7-year-old mind, like, we had a coder on our mill session yesterday, and she said a 7-year-old will get stressed out if we start to do coding with all those algorithms and all. Now you have these kind of scams also happening in the education sector. What are your insights on this, ma'am? What would your message to the parents be? I know you spoke about this, but in direct relation to this.
Like I spoke to Itu also about this. I think treat this like a gap year. Okay, go slow. You cannot give everything to your child in these circumstances. I mean, the pandemic has hit us. We didn't see the Spanish flu, and we hope you won't see anything else after this. But I think, as parents who are the educated adult,
Right.
who understand, why are Indian parents always wanting? Okay, let me put it differently. Why do moms hyperventilate about feeding their child? The first thing that mothers will ask, or fathers will ask, typically mothers, when the child comes from school, tiffin khaya? Okay, why? Okay, when the child is hungry, he or she would eat.
Right.
It's not a reflection on your parenting. It's if the child's hungry, he or she will eat. If the child wants to play, he or she will not eat. So if he's hungry, he'll come home and eat.
That's what nutrition coaching actually teaches you, that eat only when you feel hungry, otherwise don't
Yeah,
eat.
don't eat 3 square meals or 5
Yeah.
square meals. Eat a
Right.
good breakfast, and then your hunger pangs will drive you to the refrigerator or to your tiffin box in school,
Yeah.
as the case may be. Having said that, I do think this high need for achievement factor, that my child has to be the best. My child should lose no opportunity. This is the best time, because how many people have, uh, how many adults have put themselves out there handling their jobs, want to get all the certification that they can possibly get when they're working from home. Okay, look at the kind of mental stress that's happening on them. I would much rather advise parents, it's a bit much,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree with you.
to thrust everything down your 7-year-olds. Okay, when my team and myself ideated about how to run the school during the COVID times, we made sure that it was age appropriate based on the needs.
Absolutely.
Right. So I think, in fact, I was talking to another coach, and it'll be great if you could help me here, and we'll talk another day. I was telling another coach that it's really important that we do adaptive leadership. I think we need to do a session on adaptive parenting.
Absolutely. We are doing that. We
Are you
have an
doing
entire
that?
course. So
Because I really think it's important.
this book, I think Jugnu sent some copies across to the school. This book has
I got it
a
years
whole
back.
no, this was released a little before the lockdown, so we sent it during the lockdown.
I
You got the old Karma Kari book, but this is called Kid Power. So it has stories of children from unserved communities who are giving back, and then it has an entire section on parenting skills.
Because today's time, I don't blame the parents. See, they're also going through a lot.
No,
Like you said,
I have a simple way of explaining this, that the parents are under pressure, and that's why they put the children under pressure, because we are not a rat race anymore. We are a germ race.
yeah.
We are fighting 1.3 billion germs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to reduce ourselves to that, but the point is that we work with that kind of a mindset, that we somehow have to make the cut, So
But I feel very sorry. My heart goes out to the parents also, because it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy for teachers, who see that the parents are sitting on their classes. The teachers are being watched at every point. It's not easy for parents who don't know how to transact this.
Absolutely.
Work from home, work with your child. Everyone's not. Till now, many homes were not tech savvy. Right. Many. Right. So it's a challenge on all fronts. And I really think that, to answer your question, wait, pause.
Absolutely. And that's what when we spoke about the learning in schools that we want to impart, it's what you spoke about then, that when you appoint your teachers, you're not just focusing on their competence, you're focusing on their character. It's that interview that you had gone to, that do you have the capacity to say I don't know? Because you're a teacher, that does not mean that you know everything. You should I always say this, the enlightenment is not being a Sadhguru who says I know everything and I know more than you. Enlightenment is saying I don't know anything and I want to know more. I want to learn.
Exactly.
And it is what Socrates said, as I think Socrates was the world's best teacher. And he said, I cannot teach anyone anything. I can only make you think. And we start all our sessions with that. And the Mojo Inspirator learning infinitum that we have created, it's an entire learning system and a framework. This applies to everybody, because this is what we've been doing in corporate coaching all these years. And this applies to parents, teachers. That's the holy trinity that we are addressing in our school program. It's not just the child, because if the child, you lift the child, but the parent and the teacher are left behind, then it won't work. So we got to lift everybody together,
Sure.
and the teacher has to lift the parent.
Yeah.
Right? Because the parent has to understand that, hey, don't worry, your child will find a way. Why you? Because most of your corporate careers are going to be redundant in the next 10 years. Because
everything is going to change. Everything.
Absolutely. The world is
wiped out.
So gig economy was to happen by 2030. I used to always say 2025. It's happened in 2020, which means that you won't have permanent jobs. So, parents who are used to permanent jobs and comfort zones have been only preparing children for permanent jobs, and they are not there.
From the security point of view, that it is secure when you
Secure,
get,
yeah.
a salary every month, the
And,
security.
and that's going to completely change, because AI is going to take over, and unfortunately most of us, you spoke about how parents are doing certification, and I must tell you this: a little before the lockdown, I'd engaged with an executive who was the vice president or senior vice president in an organization, and I didn't know he had applied in another place to be their CEO or COO. And he, in our first engagement, which is a one-to-one, said, I have joined this course on leading with emotional intelligence. And I said, very good. So where are you doing it from? And he said, from some Ivy League institute through a Coursera or one of those online programs. And I said, okay, tell me more about emotional intelligence. And he did not know, because he had just joined the course for the certification to attach it to his biodata. And I said, if someone
That's
someone
what
like if someone like me is sitting on that panel, interview panel, and I ask you this question, you just lost the job. What are you
So,
doing?
yeah, absolutely, Jerry. And, the market is ripe and the market is cashing in on, and this is an opportunity,
Yeah,
this is an
absolutely.
opportunity, a
Absolutely.
1 month crash course or a 2 month crash course. Everyone can manage it online because working from
Absolutely.
home. So I really think that we need to take a deep breath,
Yeah.
as I
No,
said earlier.
and we'll share with you. We have an entire book and a learning program called
Would-
Mentoring, which employs principles, because mentoring is the next level of coaching. And I always say this, that it's not just the managers and corporate leaders who have to learn mentoring. Mentoring is a skill which parents and teachers have to learn. And everybody uses this word mentor without understanding that there's science behind it. So my book is ready. It's to be published. We've done the course in many organizations. I'll share it with you. Feel free to use it. It's our
Sure.
school
Thank you.
anyway. So
Thank
that's
you. Thank you so much. Thanks for
so
that. I know.
thank you for those insights. And I'm very happy that you brought that element of I don't know. I think that is the premise of the Mojo Inspirator learning, that I don't know.
Yeah.
And when we train our Mojo Inspirators to go out, the first thing we teach them is, if somebody asks you a question you don't know, say I don't know. They'll respect you more, they'll trust you more, rather than
That's the best way. You're just immediately a safe space. You're just in a safe space because then you're
yeah
not being judged, right?
yeah and then I will research it and come back to you
Yeah,
with the
exactly.
information, right?
Exactly. Our students know more than us today. I mean, they
Yeah,
really do, they
yeah,
really do. Yeah.
absolutely. And there was this teacher, I forget her name now, but she was a maths teacher, and I think she was Zorawat's class teacher also in class 6 or 7. And
Niti?
I still remember that interview with her. Not an interview, but the PTM, the parent teacher meeting,
Okay.
when we went to get Zorawat's score sheet and mark sheet. And she said, Zorawat asks such fabulous questions. He makes me wonder whether I know my maths. And I'm like, wow, amazing. That's what a teacher should be, right? And
Oh, lovely.
and that's what.
Thinking kids, thinking kids. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. They have to challenge. They have to challenge all of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right, ma'am. Thank you so much. Pleasure. Is
Not
there any closing insights from you before we wrap up? Great session that we've had with you. And I hope all the people listening are going to learn from this, because we spoke about two big things, which is secularism and parenting, which is a skill which is completely missing in our country, right? So
Yeah.
that's what. So any closing insights from you, ma'am?
And no, I would just say that have patience. Okay, this too shall pass. And
Absolutely.
love your family time, because it's not going to come back once the rat race starts again. So just make the most of having your family, your children, your parents, and everybody around you, and have faith. That's all. Be
Absolutely.
positive. Be
Absolutely.
positive.
And I think completely
Yeah.
you are echoing our
Stay safe.
sentiments.
Don't step out in the next 2 months for all these festivals. I mean, I really plead everyone not to step out and not to celebrate anything. Celebrate with your family in your homes. And
Yeah, and that's how cases are going up in Bombay and Europe and places like that, because the report says that the small
exactly. Yeah.
parties are increasing cases more than anything else, because a lot of people are having small get-togethers and things at home. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have patience. That's all I'm saying. Have patience. 1 year in your life is not going to matter 20 years later.
Absolutely.
Isn't
All
it?
right,
Yeah.
ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Good
much.
night.
Thanks,
Yes.
Itu. Thanks, Jerry. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Itu, you're
Thanks.
saying something?
I was, yeah, I was saying the one takeaway that I want to take from here is pause. Just
Absolutely.
pause. Nothing is going to come down. Just pause and stay there. Yeah. And the MILS program is for students as well of 11th and 12th class. I'll touch base with you on that as well.
Sure,
Thank you,
sure,
ma'am.
sure, sure.
Excellent.
Thank
More
you
than
so
happy.
Have a
Thank you.
good
Thank
evening.
you.
What's left of it, good
Thank
night.
you.
Namaste.
Thanks a lot. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Thank you.